Pandora's box is about to open wide.
Welcome, ghoulies, to the Halloween edition of Pandora's box. My name for today is Ice Cold Viner. Here we have Perigwith, apparently. Who's joining us from Ludlow, and the Mexican Goblin himself.
Yes, I am Xenon.
Xenon, the Mexican Goblin.
Xenon.
The Mexican Goblin, who
I
also
like your
may
tinfoil hat.
he
Thank
also
you, thank
may
you.
be an alien. People dispute whether he's an alien or a Mexican Goblin.
It's hearsay.
I
ladies and
I
gents.
believe that he's a Mexican Goblin. So that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I thought I had to pull it out this week. You know, especially the hat.
Mexican.
I'm anticipating some scary stories, and you know the frequencies get a little bit when we start getting spooky. So I thought,
Well, it is nearly Halloween, of course, and it is
It would
this
keep you
year's
safe.
exactly.
Halloween special.
Wear protection.
So
yeah.
you must wear protection at all times,
Absolutely.
ladies and gentlemen.
I
in
have my
all
pillow
areas
for
of life.
protection.
Yeah, because Perigwith, a.k.a. Drew, is going to maybe get a bit scared today because we've
I'm
got
getting
some,
ready for a
this
chicken
evening
dinner.
I should say, because we've got some spooky tales to share with you all. Because, you know, it's Halloween, we've got to have some spooky tales, it's Halloween. So...
I love it. You've always got a good spooky tale, man.
Oh, I love a spooky tale, you know me. You know me, I love a spooky tale. So lock the doors, ladies and gentlemen. Bolt the windows. Find the safest and coziest nook of your house as we delve into the first creepy story of our Halloween special. Have you guys ever heard of Cannock Chase in Staffordshire?
Cannock Chase. No.
It's some woodland in Staffordshire, just northwest of Birmingham.
Oh my!
All right.
It's a creepy place. Yeah, Roswell, Area 51, places that are notorious for events of the other worlds.
Activity.
But Cannock Chase is a
I
location.
think I have heard of this one, actually.
It's just as mate. This is a crazy one. This is just as mysterious. This isn't to do with aliens. Well, not that we know of, but it's just as mysterious as Area 51, Roswell, any of the other places. But it's one of those ones nowhere near as famous. One thing that always amazes me, especially as somebody that's looked into a plethora of supernatural tales, literally ever since I could even pick up a book or watch a documentary, was is that. Yeah, ever since Goosebumps. Or to be fair to my mum, she used to watch like a lot of like weird like documentaries and stuff when I was a kid, and I'd like love watching them with her as well, like late at night, you know. But yeah, it never like ceases to amaze me how many different just supernatural stories there are out there, or mysterious stories that had never been explained. Now, obviously, that's not to imply that, you know, all of these things, you know, were definitely like something supernatural. But the thing that I find fascinating about all these stories is something went on, and we don't know what. And some of these stories, some of the accounts, are so crazy that they just like are almost just fascinating, and they will keep you up at night just wondering what it was. Especially when it's cases like this, and so a lot of the ones that we've mentioned in the past, where there's like multiple witnesses, and the story is freaking nuts. So. Let's go back to Cannock Chase. This is a location that's kept locals in sheer fright for nearly a century. Within Cannock Chase, there's a large structure known as the Pie Green Tower, where an abnormal amount of sightings of UFOs, odd lights, werewolves, giant snakes, Bigfoot, large black cats, aliens, and reports of government officials sneaking around the perimeter of the tower and the forest have been recorded. Now, that's in itself, just to start off, that is quite a shocking mix, isn't it, of things.
Aliens and Bigfoot.
To all have been seen, sort of apparently seen around this Pie Green Tower. We had werewolves, giant snakes, UFOs, odd lights, black cats, aliens, Bigfoots, right?
I have been there. Can't confirm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The Mexican Goblin himself has been there. Right, the tower was built during the Cold War by the British as a backup communication systems, as they were worried about an unexpected EMP attack from the Soviet Union. But they say there is more than electronics inside these mysterious walls. Another mysterious being said to lurk around the Pie Green Tower is, and this is the most terrifying one of all, the pig man of Cannock Chase.
I like that.
The pig man. It might sound funny at first, but can you imagine? Like, it's like, think, right? It's winter. You're walking your dog in the middle of the woods, right? The sun's going down. It's starting to get dark. You realise that you hadn't really brought a torch because you were in a bit of a rush that day. Yep. You hear that maybe from the bushes nearby, or maybe in the distance you hear. Or imagine just out of the trees you just see this terrifying half man, half pig creature,
Long
just like
pig.
on like 2 feet.
Pig.
Do you know what I mean? But just with like weird, like half hooven, half handy, and he's just like got big tusks and everything. He's like coming to just covered in like blood and looking demented.
Pigs are quite an emotionless animal as well, aren't they? They often say that, you know, if you know anyone that has pigs on a farm, stay away from them.
Yeah. Well, they eat everything, don't they?
Yeah.
And there was I can't remember the name of the serial killer, but there was a serial killer, I believe, in Canada. There was a massive case of people getting killed in Canada for a while. Serial killer on the loose. The police knew that it was a serial killer. They were trying to track him down. It ended up being a farmer out in the wilds of Canada. The only reason they found out that it was him, and I'll have to do some research actually to find out who exactly this was, because this is an interesting tale in itself, was in his pig pen, in some of the pig poo, there was like a little bit of bone, which then the police took and did a DNA analysis, and it was one of the victims, and he was like chopping up the bodies and feeding them to his pigs, because pigs will eat anything. Yeah, they'll eat anything. So it was great to like get rid of evidence and stuff like that.
That's crazy.
But yeah, back to the pig man of Cannock Chase. According to local legend, this creepy monster originated when during World War II, just after World War II had ended, British and American scientists joined forces to conduct a series of peculiar experiments in Cannock Chase. Apparently the tests went too far. Allegedly they abducted a woman and managed to, after lots of hard work, impregnate her with an artificial human pig combination DNA seed in an attempt to create a creature to perform tests upon. These scientists closely monitored the woman for 10 months, and they finally determined that the horrible test did not work. A year later, they were stunned to discover that her pregnancy was severely delayed. She bore a baby human, but one who had the snout and face of a pig. The man pig. Much later, this creature retreated into the woods of Cannock Chase to avoid the prejudice of human eyes. For decades, people have since then reported seeing a tall man with the head of a pig roaming about the mysterious landscapes of Cannock Chase.
They say, don't they, that you can swap a human heart with the pigs? Yeah.
They're the ones that they are the most one of the most genetically similar to us animals. That's why if you're going to have one animal to get to like have a transplant of a heart, then yeah, it would be a pig. And I'm pretty sure, haven't they even done like a lot of trials? I think they might even been successful. Yeah, I think there are successful.
I don't think they've lived for long
transplants. Yeah,
but I think they've
like a couple of months or something.
Yeah, or it might have even been like a couple of seconds. I could be wrong.
No, I reckon it's longer.
But yeah. They have done it
that
before,
would
which
be
is pretty crazy.
So weird. I wonder, like, when they say about people when they get heart transplants and they actually get different like emotions and that, or like things or memories from whoever they've had like the implant from.
Imagine the memory of a pig.
Yeah, imagine like if you just start becoming like a bit more pig-like and like having these real urges to.
That would be a good horror movie.
Yeah,
that'd be a good. That reminds me almost a bit of like The Fly. Obviously.
Yeah, I was about to say,
about how you're just slowly turning more and more into this weird creature.
Yeah, like I wonder if that does. There is that cross DNA thing where it like you actually start feeling like pig-like urges. That'd be so weird.
Rolling around in the mud.
Yeah. I think that there could be potentially some serious science behind that, like not just like wishy-washy, because there are like neurons and stuff in like lots of different parts of our bodies, not just in our brains. Obviously, our stomachs are like one area where there's like loads.
Listen to your gut.
Yeah, you've got instincts, as they say.
Yeah.
So I think heart would be like another one. Heart is obviously one of the most major parts of your entire body. That's why, you know, when you fall in love with somebody, so giving them your heart or whatever, you know, it's like, you know, it's one of the most crucial parts of our anatomy.
I also remember seeing something as well about some tests were done where people were looking at like blind pictures coming up onto a screen, and they would measure their bodies, like they'd like measure their heart and different things, like when the picture came up, and they were saying that the heart would react to the picture before it was even shown. So it was almost like it could
gut
intuit
instinct, almost.
But the heart was like reacting in a different way to positive pictures and like gruesome pictures, and it was doing. Do you know what I mean? It was like and they could pick it up from the test, and it's almost like saying like your heart can almost like preempt like what's coming a bit or whatever.
Yeah, I feel very much as well. Like your brain is almost like the supercomputer of your body. But it's not really, it doesn't, I feel like, you know when people say things like, oh, that was really from the heart, or that was heartfelt. Like I feel like whenever you listen to like a beautiful song that really resonates with you and it almost makes you feel like you want to cry, or it makes your hair stand on end, like you feel like that was written from the heart rather than from the brain. Like if it's too much from the brain, I feel like the feeling you get is almost like, it's like analytical. Yeah, exactly. Whereas you want it to have a lot of soul, a lot of emotion, a lot of feel, and I feel like that's more coming from the heart, isn't it? But getting back to the story, and less from the theory that, you know, you could clearly turn into a pig man if you had a pig, if you had a heart transplant. So we've given the background information on Cannock Chase, and you know where apparently the origins of this pig man of Cannock Chase come from. Now let's go into our first sighting. Our first confirmed sighting. This is a man local to Cannock Chase known as Lee Brickley. He first heard about the pigman of Cannock Chase when he was in school from an aforementioned rhyme, which apparently is sung in the area. After doing at least a decade of research into the pigman, he finally wrote a book about Cannock Chase, which documents many sightings of this humanoid. Once an email was sent to him by a local couple that documented their encounter with the pigman. Here it is in its original form. So this was literally word for word the email that was sent to Lee Brickley. Dear Mr. Brickley, I've seen something rather odd on Cannock Chase that I think may be of some interest to you. In October of 1993, whilst walking around Castle Ring, myself and the wife heard some strange noises coming from the surrounding trees. Thinking it was likely to be a local couple enjoying an illicit liaison, we quickly moved away. We quickly moved away from the sound and headed back to the direction of our car. Upon reaching the steps down to the car park, I happened to turn around and lay my eyes on the strangest creature I've ever seen. This thing was 7 feet tall. It wasn't the Mexican goblin. This thing was 7 feet tall from the neck down. It looked like a man, even wearing clothes. But its head was far too big for a human and had an elongated face with a snout-like nose. When I pointed it out to my wife, she instantly became terrified. So we started walking quickly back towards our car and got inside. That's when we started to hear this really high-pitched squealing noise. That's right. It sounded just like a pig being killed.
Oh.
That's when we got really spooked. Have you ever come across anything like this before? Regards, John and Anne. So that was one account that was sent to Lee Brickley. Others have also claimed to see the creature, including someone who shared the experience on the internet. Here is this person's account in its original form. We caped there. I assume something they meant to say we camped there. It says we caped there. We camped there one Friday night, rough around 2006. Just a sheet in the trees. Probably about 5 of us. I had a lift there by one of my mates. They all had work Saturday, so planned to go back early. Friday night, we were quite close to the road. We had a fire burning for warmth and light. The police pulled up and told us to put it out. Me being me, I told them no.
That's tough.
Rebel. They got in their cars and drove off, which I thought was strange. That's never happened to me before. So next day, the lads went to work. They were planning to come back and camp the night again after work. I decided to stay on my own, move all stuff deeper into the forest as to not attract police attention again. I was there for 5 hours on my own. I set up 3 tents and put sheets in the trees. I built a surround to stop the wind and got all the firewood ready. It was a masterpiece. 2 of my friends came for me and said no one was up for stopping the night. I was annoyed. All that stuff was mine, around £600 worth, and I was to just leave it in a forest unattended. I wasn't happy. I'm not easily frightened. I spent 5 hours alone in the forest that day with no fear. I had an 18-inch razor-sharp machete on me. This guy's a bit of a geezer.
Get it out, man.
This guy's a bit of a geezer. Telling just to the police, like, no.
I ain't leaving.
Yeah, I'm not even really annoyed that his friends bailed on him.
Machete aren't leaving.
I'm just gonna stay here on my own, mate. With my 18-inch. This is razor-sharp, this machete, mate.
I weren't scared.
Slice through anything, mate.
Come at me, pigman.
After he goes on about his 18-inch razor-sharp machete, he says, I know this sounds a bit sinister, but we are all responsible adults that were out there, and you never know when you might need one. His machete, he means. So that night, I rang everyone I knew and told them to come back with me so my stuff wasn't left. I'd say this guy hasn't written this well, so apologies if this account isn't great. This guy isn't the best writer. So I guess he got his mates to come back with him to get his stuff, basically. Mm-hmm. One of his friends wanted to. So I decided I'm doing it. I'm going to camp there on my own. Okay, maybe he said one wasn't going to. Okay, basically this guy's camping here on his own now, okay? This guy's camping in the woods on his own with his 18-inch machete. He's annoyed the police. He's probably annoyed his friends by the sounds of things.
And he ain't scared.
But he ain't scared, and he set up a banging little den in the forest.
£600 worth.
Yeah, he spent 5 hours that day, mate, there on his own. Didn't break a sweat. Yeah, so he's up for it. He's gone full Rambo, this guy. He's gone full Rambo, all right? Right. He got his book out. He got the book out he was reading, and off he went. Apparently. He pulled up... What? This makes no sense. He pulled up in his car where he saw a UFO.
Oh my! Out of nowhere.
He then goes to say, I walked casually across the road. There was a tall bush you had to walk through to get on the path. I suddenly clicked and said to myself, you're on your own now. Be a bit more wise and a bit more cautious. This guy's a hilarious fella, isn't he?
Yeah. I love that he saw a UFO and casually walked. Walked on.
Yeah, unless like he meant that he saw a UFO there in the past. Not that, because he says, like, I pulled up in my car where we had originally seen the UFO.
Right, okay.
I walked, so maybe he meant in the past. But yeah, when you're, this is why writing matters, people. All right?
Yeah.
Do a little, take the time to check your work, proofread, and edit your words if necessary. Right, so where were we? Right, he said to himself, you're on your own now. Be a bit more wise and cautious. So I stopped in the centre of this large bush and I lit a cigarette. I don't know how that's being more cautious. I stood there smoking my cigarette. I listened and heard movement. I slowly and quietly moved out of the bush and round, expecting to see a big deer. Instead, about 200 yards away from me, I was looking down the hill, in brackets, I saw a white figure on all fours. It looked like it was sniffing the ground, as a dog would if it were walking down a street. First, I thought it's the warden. He's found the stuff and is looking for us with his dog. But the sound it was making sounded far more like a pig than a dog. So I thought then... So I thought then, maybe this is a large boar. But it wasn't the colour of a boar. It was the colour of a pig. I watched it for about 30 seconds trying to determine it. Then it stopped dead. It didn't move. I knew it now. Knew I was there. I froze, took hold of my machete, 18 inches long and razor sharp, and waited. Then this thing stood up on its back legs. It was massive. I'm 6'3". This thing was at least 7 foot tall.
Ooh.
And it ran at me at speed up the hill like a person would. Squealing like a banshee you would hear on a horror film, crossed with a pig. I ran. This is literally what he says. I ran like a bitch.
This guy's hilarious.
I ran like a bitch, got in my car and drove off without looking back. I'll admit I've never been so scared in my life. I have been back to Cannock Chase since, but I will never go back on my own, even with my razor sharp 18-inch long machete. I added that last night.
He should have took it out, man, with his machete. That would have been.
Do you reckon he should have just fought it?
Just running at you, just like.
Just went
chop
like full,
his snout off.
Yeah, full like Sam and Dean supernatural style. Right, battling
Take
the
it
woods
on.
with like a creature, an unknown creature. Yeah. So it goes on to say, the funny thing, I've never heard of anyone knowing or any other proof of it till last year. Okay. So I guess he never ever, he didn't even know anything about it. Is that what he's saying? Yeah. The funny thing is, I've never heard of anyone knowing or any other proof of it till last year. Yeah, okay, so I guess he's saying that he didn't know anything about it prior, and he didn't know of anyone else.
Is this still the machete guy?
This is the machete guy,
right.
Yeah. He says, can't believe I'm not the only one to see this. Typically, I see something after 2 years of trying when I was on my own. I have proof of the lights in the trees. I have 2 other eyewitnesses to that. So I now guess he's talking about the UFO incident. I said this guy hasn't got the best writing skills. I have no proof of the pig man other than believe me or not. One other thing I missed about the first time was, as we were riding our bikes towards the lights, and this is the UFO, I guess, each of us felt a massive drop in temperature. Only way to describe it would be to walk into a big meat freeze. I guess he meant meat freezer. Instantly, extremely. This guy is hilarious.
Instantly, extremely.
This guy is hilarious, but nonetheless, his account is an intriguing one. So that was the pig man of Cannock Chase. As I said, an interesting background. As I said, what do you guys think of the possibility that during the Cold War, English and American scientists might have been doing some, DNA experiments on
I think they still are.
People? Yeah, do you reckon?
But there's loads of weird stuff going on behind closed doors.
There is that account, isn't there? Of like I know that during the Second World War, I think both the Soviets and the Nazis were experimenting with apes to see if they could make an ape man.
Wasn't
hybrid.
there something where like something washed up on the shore? There was like this weird creature. There was this island where they were doing some experimentations on the island, and like one of the surrounding places nearby the island, like there was these weird like hybrid animals like washing up on the shore and stuff. That sounded really weird.
Mental.
I've definitely read about that like years ago, like just thinking it was proper weird, and it was almost like these scientific experiments.
There is one, and I think this is literally like verified. There is one that is like open to the public, a story, and let me get this right. I think it was a scientist that was fascinated with the idea of like chimp and human like crossbreeding and stuff like that, and not just crossbreeding, but seeing if you could like put the brain of a chimp inside a man and vice versa, right? And a man did a brain transplant between a chimp and a man, right? Tried to do it all as well as possible, put the cranium back on, and then basically just waited to see what happened, wait to see if they would wake up. Now, I think that the chimp with the chimp's body with the man's brain died instantly, but I think that the chimp's brain in the man's body managed to live for about 10 seconds, and apparently opened its eyes and was like really weird and like freaking out and stuff, and it lived for about 10 seconds and then died. But imagine how weird that is. Imagine like a weird, you're a chimp.
Right.
You got your little chimp brain, and you wake up and you're in the body of a human.
Because I suppose your consciousness would fully be transported with the brain, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So imagine how freaking mental. Apparently it was like for 10 seconds, it was just freaking out on the bed, on the table. But apparently it was, it like couldn't move because the way like during the brain, you know, he couldn't connect up the nervous system to the brain,
right?
And obviously had to be like severed when. So that was almost like the end of his experience. But apparently you could like see it, like his head like was like freaking out in this man's body for about 10 seconds,
weird.
and then died.
Because
it makes you wonder. No, go on.
I was gonna say, on things like that, like cloning and like experiments like that, they're like super illegal, aren't they? Like,
I don't know if they're illegal. I know that. Do you remember? I think it was about 1993. They first successfully cloned a sheep, didn't they?
But I think it is illegal. I think
Shaun the sheep. That's what I think.
To clone them there's rules against it and stuff. But
okay, Drew's just frozen. The pig man's kind of chase just taking him out. Are you back? Are you back, Drew?
Oh yeah.
Are you back, Drew?
I'm there.
I think we got a bit too close to the truth then.
This is why you need your tinfoil hats, ladies and gents.
Yeah, maybe
that
we
was
should.
So weird.
Yeah. Getting a bit too close to the truth.
But wasn't there some guy that like who? I swear it was on the pod we were talking about this, where someone cloned hybridized a animal to hunt because they wanted to go hunt it and get the meat. Did we talk about that?
Yeah. What was that? That was really recently. That was like that giant goat.
Yeah, but he got in like loads of trouble for doing it.
Yeah, who was that we were talking about? It was someone because we were saying he should have been like awarded for it, weren't we? But instead, he got loads of he got in loads of trouble for it. But he basically managed to create this giant breed of goat.
But that's it. I think there's
he knew
quite
that if he released it and then hunt
it,
then because it messes up the ecosystem, I guess. Because if you introduce like it's like in Australia and New Zealand, I know they're really, really strict on like what you can bring into the country and not, and things like that. And obviously in like the Florida Everglades, they've got a massive python problem, haven't they? Pythons are just like eating everything. And I think they've started to have a Nile crocodile problem there as well. It's like in the early stages, whereas the python, the Burmese python one, is much further along. But the Burmese pythons, because they have no natural predators really in the Florida Everglades, they're just eating everything. Even like the alligators, which is crazy, isn't it?
Mental.
Obviously, like obviously a fully grown alligator can kill a small Burmese python, but the problem is the ones that are fully grown are like targeting the young alligators before they're fully grown. And obviously, all you need to do is like wipe out one generation, and then that's basically that like you've made something extinct. Do you know what I mean?
Don't they like swallow it whole?
Yeah, they do.
That's imagine seeing a snake with just like the body of a crocodile inside it.
You can see them. There are literally pictures on the internet. You can see if you type up like Florida python eating a alligator. You can literally see them with like these bloated bellies. I think there's one case you can look up where there's actually like a python that ate an alligator that was too big and its stomach just burst because obviously they're quite sharp and like bone, you know what I mean, like with their ridges and their armor plates and everything, and it's just like one that bit off a bit more than it could chew and it just like burst. But yeah, I think obviously another really obvious type of breeding that goes on is obviously we breed cats and dogs. We've managed to take literally like a wolf and turn it into like a pug and things like that. Do you know what I mean? So humans have always been experimenting and made like different, like
hybridizing
different breeds of horses and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that the type of horse which is most used for racehorsing is like a cross between like an Arabian horse and like this other type of horse. Do you know what I mean? Because the horses that were always like native to the UK were more like the Shire horses types, which were great for like nights and also great to work on the farm.
Like the huge ones? They're absolutely huge. Some of them, aren't they?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Whereas I think like the horses that you see in racehorses, they're not like found in nature. Do you know what I mean? They probably look real similar to some, obviously, but because I mean, in layman's terms, a horse is a horse. But yeah, they're actually technically like they're bred to be like as fast as possible. And
on cloning, I just looked and human reproductive cloning, anything like even like they try and do it for like like cloning a baby and then letting it be in another woman or something to help like fertilization stuff. That's illegal, and like cloning of human beings, but a cloning of animals isn't illegal if it's purely for scientific research and it's been approved by the Home Office apparently. In the UK,
I was going to say you probably need it to get approved by some sort of permit.
Makes you wonder how many like classified files there are out there with people like experimenting with human animal hybrids.
Happening.
I've got a good story today. If we wanted to go into it of a anthropomorphic animal, do
you mind if I finish just my next couple of ones first? Just because this is very, very related almost to the next one. Not in terms of not directly, but in terms of the general gist of the story. So we're going to move on to a different pig man now in a different area of the world. This is the Vermont pig man in the United States of America. But the fascinating thing about this is tied to the story of a man called Sam Harris. But nobody knows whether Sam Harris is the Pigman or was killed by the Pigman.
Wow, that's cool. John Pork.
Yeah, man. So this is the tale of Sam Harris. Sam Harris went missing when he was 17 in the hills of Northfield, Vermont, in 1951. It was October 30th, the day before Halloween, or the 30th of October, as we'd say in the UK. The 30th of October, 1951. Sam Harris set out, apparently, and I don't know the relevance of this, maybe it's just because he did, set out with eggs in his hand for what he called picket night, a night of mischief. He walked off into the forest with a grin on his face.
A prankster.
Picket night.
The next morning, when his parents awoke, they found him missing. This set off a huge search that lasted weeks and involved hundreds of locals over hundreds of square miles. He was never found, although it is said that there have been sightings of Sam, who some say became possessed by the devil himself while out on Halloween Eve that night. Sam Harris apparently is known to slaughter pigs, eat their entrails, and hollow out the pig's head, wearing it himself as a mask while terrorizing the locals of New England. Sam supposedly still haunts the hills surrounding what's known as the Devil's Wash Bowl. Rumour has it he lies with the pigs. Ugh.
Already, this is like way creepier than the first one. What a creepy bloke.
Yeah.
Like wearing a pig's face.
And rumour has it as well that he lies with the pigs. So he makes loves to the pigs. He has sex with the pigs. There's even some legends, this can't be biologically possible, but there's even some legends that say that he has managed to spawn half man, half pig offspring that now also creep around the woods.
Boinking them.
With Sam and his weird pig head. Right, let's now move on to some of the sightings of Sam Harris, a.k.a. the Vermont Pigman. Years after 1951, some high school kids were out drinking behind the school one night during a dance when apparently this thing came walking out of the woods on two human legs. It was completely naked, covered in white hair, and was wearing a hollowed-out pig's head, like some grotesque mask with blood dripping onto his shoulders. Naturally, the kids ran off and went and told people. Word spread, and a farmer close by admitted that he'd also seen a figure matching the exact description digging through his garbage one night. Some pigs on the farmer's farm had also gone missing recently. More sightings were made of the Pigman. And that's the end of that story. But yeah, I thought it was cool in that one how after the kids said about it, the farmer came forward and said that he'd found something rummaging on his property that looked the same, and also said that his pigs went missing. Yeah, that's just weird.
That's horrible. Almost like the Pied Piper of pigs.
Yeah.
How creepy.
Sam Harris. So I wonder how old would he have to be now? If he was born in 1951. Oh no, if he went missing in 1951, he'd have to be dead by now, wouldn't he, surely? Or near to it. If he was 17 in 1951, he'd be well old now.
The children, the spawn of Sam may still live on.
Yeah, in Vermont. So if you are anywhere near in Vermont in the United States, and you're out in the woods, just be careful if you hear a little pig squeal. Be careful, it might not just be an innocent little pigling.
Imagine how horrible it would be, having a pig, wearing a hollowed out pig's head.
Oh,
I remember at a gig once in Cherries, there was this band that was playing, and they brought a pig's head on stage, and it was disgusting, and it was just it smelled real weird, and just
I think that was that there was that metal band, wasn't there? A band called in town called Sick Pig.
Yeah.
I reckon it was there.
And it was sick. And I remember like it was.
And it was a pig.
Yeah, and it was real funny because Cammy's like cousin was round or something, like visiting from Kazakhstan.
When she was there.
And they both came to like watch us play at the gig, like Death by Kai, because we were playing that gig. And like she
Welcome
came in
to England.
and she said they were just long like with this like pig's head, and she was like and just left straight away, and I didn't even see her.
Mate, welcome to England.
Yeah.
Imagine that's your first taste ever of England. You just come to, I've never been to England before. Instantly just go to this like metal gig where there's this like freaking brutal like death metal band called Sick Pig, and
I remember even
an
like
actual pig's head out on stage.
Yeah, and like after like when everyone was
twisted.
like packing up at the end of the night, there's just this pig head on the floor, like it's just
At
like,
least pick it up and put it back in the bag, innit? You know. Like tie the bag up, maybe.
Bloody pig head just on the floor, just looking disgusting.
They must have had to have like
brilliant.
gone to the butchers and be like, I don't suppose you got a pig's head.
Yeah.
Imagine how weird the butcher must have thought they were.
Another
right.
horrible thing with a pig's head as well. I remember going around Rob's
I like how
house
you've got several pig's head stories.
Yeah, I have. I've got
This is
two.
a
I've got two.
speciality.
This is the only other one. And I remember going around Rob's, my mum's ex-boyfriend. And like he would like do loads of weird stuff and like
he would
and
do
things.
loads. He would just do loads of weird
And he was
stuff.
like, "Oh, we're gonna have pig's head," and he literally like broiled pig's head, and literally like he had this pot and he had this pig's head, but like it wouldn't fit in the pot, so he just like got this knife and just started cutting its snout off, like, you know what I mean? And then it was just like this like this desnouted, like horrible, disgusting pig's head with its ears,
Mate,
and he just cut its ears off and cut its nose off and just shoved it in this pot and started boiling it up, and I was like, that is disgusting, I'm not eating that.
Only someone in your family would go out with somebody that would do that.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know what I mean?
That
That would
is
never
like-
happen. I would just like
a nice bit of pig's head.
Unless your mum just
mental.
standing there, just like really casually, just like having a drink while he's just cutting the pig's nose off.
I just remember it was like like half the teeth were like cut through and half the nose, and it was just off, just like man, it was brutal. Just shoved into this pot.
I'm all for like, you know, using all of the animals, not be wasteful, especially if you're more in like, you know, if you're like camping or out on like an excursion, or if you're in the military, you know, and you're like on some sort of campaign where you have to be in like, you know, a land until you've achieved whatever objective. But
Got
to just do that at home, do that at home, I think is a little
as a
bit.
speciality.
He'd been watching too much Bear Grylls, man.
Oh,
Do you know what
yeah.
I mean, what's next?
Yeah,
What's
I thought it
next?
was bad enough for the sheep's head in Kazakhstan when that was like the, you know, and like they cut different parts. It was all cooked, and they would cut different parts of it and give it to people.
I have heard that things like, you know, like tongue and cheek and things like that are like
ox
quite
tongue's
tasty.
really nice, apparently.
There was a footballer that changed sides from a rival to a different rival. Well, it was my team. He changed from Barcelona to Real Madrid, and he famously got like loads of pig heads thrown at him when they played like the derby match that next year. Yeah, God knows how they got him in past.
What's
like,
the
security.
symbolism of the pig's head?
Just to essentially calling him like a traitor. So
Right.
He was like a pig. You know?
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
Maybe that's like a Spanish thing. Maybe in Spain, if you're a traitor, you're a pig.
Yeah.
Because in England, I feel like it's more like if you're a pig, you're like almost like you're gross. Do you know what I mean? If you like walked in and somebody was just like was like a slob, and they just had like dirty food everywhere. And, like, dirty. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Just like food all down them, and they just were really greasy. But like, you are a dirty pig.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, rather than like you're a traitor. If you're a traitor, you're more of like a snake or like a worm in like the UK, aren't you? Or in Anglo. Yeah, interesting. Anyway, well, it's a nice. Thanks for the pig's head story. I always appreciate like a random story from one of your family members, man. Right, before I pass over the mic to Bullwinkle for his story, supernatural story. This is a little one. This is quite interesting though, because I've been to the woods where apparently this creature lives.
Ooh.
I've walked through these woods. It was the middle of the day though, and it was sunny, so it wasn't very spooky. But this is just down in Cornwall. This is down in Cornwall, and this is the story of the Owl Man. Have you ever heard about the Owl Man of Cornwall before?
No.
It's a bit like, in some of the accounts, it sounds a bit like the Mothman, you know, from the US. You know, just similar description, other than obviously the fact that one's described more as a moth and one describes more as like an owl, but big eyes, big like glowing eyes, similar size, things like that.
Aren't all owls really connected to like alien encounters and stuff like that as well?
The white barn
don't
owls,
they?
barn owls, because they look at the big black eyes, like, and
Oh.
apparently,
Like me
and the one by the
today.
window, the owl by the window, it was almost like the greys would show you the vision of the owls because it's more recognisable to your mind than their actual like the way that they look, you know, and that's
so creepy.
that's how you know that they're coming to take you away.
I always think Paul McCartney looks a little bit like an owl.
Maybe he's an alien.
Maybe.
Paul
That makes
McCartney
sense.
looks like an owl. An owl looks like an alien.
There you
Fill
go.
in the blanks, ladies and gentlemen. Fill in the blanks, yeah. Imagine how creepy that would be. Like, even just with an owl, though, imagine how creepy it would be if you were just like going to bed and you just realised you hadn't pulled the curtains yet. And then you just looked over in the dark and there was just a barn owl. Just looking in the
Mate,
window,
that's like that. Do you remember Pat Mack? What Pat Mack was saying with his son? Do you remember that real heartwarming story that he shared when he was like, when it was like the turning of his life when he
had like an epiphany.
Yeah, and he was
and then he
sitting
got
up
up the
on
next
his
day and
little
just started
bed,
getting running.
and this owl just come, this barn, I think it was a barn owl, he said, just came literally by the window, and he said it just chilled, like he was just there with his son and it just chilled there with him.
It just
for
scented him.
Yeah, for like
Whoa.
5 minutes, and then just
What if
flew
it
off.
was an
He said it was a
alien?
beautiful moment, like.
What if
Yeah,
it
maybe
wasn't?
he was
insane.
What if it was an alien that came to put him on the right path?
Came
Came and sorted him out.
and just abducted him for just a minute or two.
Man, if we ever speak to Pat Mack again, we need to bring that up because he's like one thing that we deduced by the end of that interview, which was really interesting. If you want to watch our interview with Pat McNamara, find it on Spotify or YouTube. Just type in Pandora's Box Podcast. Find our show with Pat McNamara. He's awesome. He's an American Special Forces legend. He's also a Metler. He's also a just survivalist, awesome guy. So imagine like Bear Grylls crossed with some cool Metler dude, but like some real life action man. But he's also like an amazing gardener. He plays guitar a little bit. He plays drums a little bit. Just an awesome guy, cool as hell. Enjoys his beer, enjoys a good laugh, and loves his motors as well. So yeah, go and listen to that if that's piquing your interest. But yeah, if we ever get him on there again, one thing we deduced near the end of the episode was that he's quite into his he's quite open-minded, isn't he? Basically, he's an open-minded guy. He was like saying, he has like experimented with like psychedelics and stuff and blah blah blah. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he thinks of that.
It is interesting because you wouldn't think that would normally, like just seeing an owl would sort of induce that motivation.
That epiphany.
Yeah, exactly.
An epiphany. Yeah, I love the word epiphany. Do you know what I mean? I love what it means.
It's almost like it's an onomatopoeic because it's like you have an epiphany, and it's just like everything's changed.
Certainly, if you say it like that, yeah.
Epiphany.
I just love the idea that you have like, this sudden
epiphany.
Completely over. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. This sudden, completely overwhelming 180.
Oh yeah,
like switch just in your life, and it's like because I think usually things in life happen so gradually. You know. Like things in life, even things that seem relatively quickly actually happen like fairly gradually.
And I think that's like really good in a way sometimes. Like when things are like building, like because I can want things too quickly sometimes, and it's almost to my detriment. But like when you like kind of have the patience to really like draw something out and stick it at something for a really long time, that is like gradual changes normally how it happens. But like you say, there's certain things that can be like so just sudden, and it works all the same. You're completely changed, or you
completely
realise
different
something.
outlook. Yeah, like a complete all of a sudden like realization, completely different outlook, and then all of a sudden in like within a moment you are on a completely different path now. That's crazy, isn't it?
Your wedding
That's
was
cool.
like an epiphany for Drewster.
There you go. I can't do that anymore. Can't
drink anymore. And that was more like a bomb going off though, and then the aftermath.
But I suppose the aftermath would be the epiphany.
Being kept in the nuclear fallout of the bomb. That's what Drew was in.
Yeah, it was an epiphany from a dark place.
Oh God! It wasn't that dark. I mean,
and it was in my head.
I mean, it was a really good night, man.
Yeah,
and like you didn't do anything that bad.
No.
As I said, to me, it was just more like it was just like it just seemed funny how other people were. Yeah, to be honest, I think some people were being over the top. I think that I think that one of the bar staff were being a bit over the top, and I think that somebody else we know that was there was being a little bit over the top as well. And I think everybody other than those two people were probably just like concerned. Do you know what I mean? Like concerned because there were like a couple of people that were like really well, and obviously because you were being a bit mental. But yeah, I think most people just like you're just having a good time sort of thing, you know?
Yeah.
All for the best.
Yeah, like nothing, you know. At the end of the day, no harm, no foul, as they say.
Yeah, that's it. As long as no one died.
No one died. There was nothing incriminating happened.
Yeah,
maybe nearly,
but not quite.
But you can't like nearly commit a crime. I mean, I guess you can.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, you either do or you don't. Do you know what I mean? You either do or you don't.
Nearly committed crime there.
Yeah. Nearly committed multiple crimes, but actually committed none.
Yes.
That's the main takeaway. That's the main takeaway. Anyway, getting back to the Owl Man of Cornwall. The Owl Man of Cornwall. As I said, I walked through these woods myself. Who, for all I know, the Owl Man was gazing down its deathly stare upon my visage. I wandered haplessly through the woods. Annoyingly, I can't remember what the name of the woods are. I know that Becky would know, my missus' sister. Because she was the one that told me about it actually while I was walking through the woods, and then I did some research after the fact. But anyway, on the 3rd of July, doesn't actually say what year. Maybe 1978. 14-year-old Sally Chapman was camping with her friend Barbara Perry in some woods in Cornwall near a church. According to her account, as she stood outside her tent, she heard a hissing sound and turned to see a figure, a dark, large figure. It looked like an owl, but it was as big as a man, with pointed ears and red eyes. The girls reported that the creature flew up into the air, revealing black pincer-like claws. Sightings of this figure continued to be reported the following day, when it was described as silvery grey, and on 2 occasions 2 years later, in June and August of 1978. Okay, so the original case took place on the 3rd of July 1976, and there were sightings for several days, and there were several more sightings 2 years later, in June and August. Isn't it interesting that it was both time was summer? First time it was in July. There was 2 sightings over a two-day period in July, and then 2 years later, in June and August. So the owl man likes the summer months. Anyway, so yeah, the two occasions 2 years later in June and August 1978, they were all within the vicinity of the church and the woods. So there you go. Researcher Jonathan Downs claims to have interviewed a young man known as Gavin, who also encountered the owl man apparently in 1989. Gavin and his girlfriend claimed to have seen a creature which he said was about 5 feet tall. He said, and I quote, "The legs had high ankles and the feet were large and black, with 2 huge toes on the visible side. The creature was grey with brown, and the eyes glowed." In 1995, there was another sighting from a female tourist, a female American tourist from Chicago, who was staying in Truro. She wrote to the Western Morning News, which is based in Truro, claiming to have seen, and I quote, "a man-bird with a ghastly face, a wide mouth, glowing eyes, and pointed ears, as well as clawed wings."
So weird, man.
As far as I'm aware, no sightings have been seen since.
Creepy.
But yeah, so there's several different sightings from multiple people. There's the guy and his girlfriend. There's the woman the most recent one from 1995 with a lady that was on holiday from Chicago, staying in Truro, and then there's the original accounts from the little girls who were camping in the woods near the church. But yeah, fascinating, don't you think?
Yeah.
Creepy that there's so many years in between the sightings as well. Almost like it just comes back every now and again. Or lets itself be seen. Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, I guess you could like hypothesize so many different things, but with a lot of these stories, some people would look to, okay, it's like a cryptid, so it's like a creature, an undiscovered creature living in this in the world. But then you'd think, okay, well, then surely there'd be more frequent sightings. Other people might say it was some sort of type of alien or something. Other people still might say it was like some interdimensional being that sometimes somehow breaks through the fabric of into our reality and then goes back. That's what a lot of people think that Bigfoot might be, won't they? Rather than being like an animal that always lives on our plane of existence, that it might be actually be some sort of alien, because apparently Bigfoot encounters and alien sightings, well, UFO sightings, I should say, go hand in hand. And other people think that maybe even if it's not a UFO, if it's like, they say, don't they, that around Halloween, the reason why they say like Halloween is Halloween, and there's several reasons why Halloween is Halloween, but one of the things that they say, or the mystics say, is that the veil is sinister, so the veil between worlds, and usually in that account at least, it's more like the veil between like the living and the dead and things like that, but also like demons and humans and stuff like that. And that's why the origins, for people that don't know, of why people originally used to dress up for Halloween wasn't obviously to go trick-or-treating or anything. The idea was that people in the UK took Halloween very, very seriously, and they took the veil between the worlds thing very, very seriously. And they did genuinely believe that monsters and demons roamed the earth on Halloween night. So if you would dress up as a monster, they would leave you alone because they would think you were one of them. That's fascinating in itself, isn't it? That's don't you think that in itself is such a fascinating fact?
There was a weird one, man, as well, where it's funny what you say about the Bigfoot and alien thing. Like, I remember reading these books years ago by this lady called Dolores Cannon, and she was like a hypnotist.
I've heard of her, actually.
Yeah, I find her really interesting. I've read loads of her books, and her books are basically transcripts that she has with patients. And it's like, it goes into a lot of like past life regressions, and like, so these people are just she's talking to their subconscious when they're deep in hypnosis, and they're just recounting all these stories about like their past lives and stuff, and I find all that stuff like really interesting. And one of them, and some of them were actually regressing back to like lives as aliens and stuff, or like from places not on this planet. It's one of them right there, and one of them in there was someone like regressed into like a Bigfoot memory. Yeah, of them.
That is mental.
Of them like being incarnated as like.
So they think that they had a previous life as a Bigfoot.
Yeah, and
Whoa,
and
that's pretty cool.
The way he was describing it in it, it was like, it sounded really cool. It was like a really like super intelligent being that was completely in harmony with his surroundings and could almost like. The way he was describing it was like he was always in this state of meditation, and he would breathe with the forest and almost communicate with like the universe, but just through being in this deep connection with like the forest and the universe and stuff. And I was like, well, that just sounds cool. Like, do you know what I mean? It was like a different kind of thing. It was like saying doesn't want to be seen by people and that, because it's just like enjoying this connection with the universe. And I was like, well,
a lot more intelligent.
I think that if the Bigfoot were to be real, I do think that it would be like extremely intelligent and very much as that man described, or the lady described, I can't remember which one, like the man described, because I think to be able to, if it was real, to be able to sort of hide itself from human civilization, which, let's face it, we're we have a lot of like state
kind of all over the
place, which is we've got a vast population spread out across the world, and even though there are like vast wildernesses left in the world, obviously in North America there's a lot where Bigfoot's supposed to be from. There's also a lot in Russia, lots of all sorts of places in the world where there will literally be like hundreds and hundreds of miles of forest. But even so, we have LiDAR and all like infrared and heat seeking, like heat, in that stuff. So we have a lot of kit. I think that to be able to successfully evade creatures like us, they would have to be very intelligent. Yeah, and I think that they would also, because they clearly have no interest in technology.
No,
If they are literally walking around essentially starkers with, you know what I mean, like they're living completely in the wild. They obviously are like very much in tune with nature and have no interest in sort of our version of technology. I still
and
think
they seem
very
peaceful as well. You don't hear of like attacks from. Or like,
you do hear of a couple.
Do you?
You hear of a couple, yeah. I mean, it seems to be more often than not more like trying to scare humans off rather than outright attack them. Do you remember a long time ago? It must have been like.
What the
I reckon about 2 years
audio
ago.
files.
Yes,
mate, they are
and I literally,
weird.
You can listen to them on YouTube, can you?
They're so cool.
They call it the samurai Bigfoot, don't they?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
But and it's those two guys. I think they were like rangers, weren't they? Like wildlife rangers, like out in California, and they hiked like ridiculously off the trail. So it wasn't a part of the Californian wilderness that like humans would frequent. And it was proper off the beaten path. And didn't they hike for like 3 days just to get there?
It was miles away from the cars and everything.
Yeah.
It was like,
and they were out. From my memory, it was almost like up in the hills, but like in like this like tree patch. So they were in the middle of these trees. But like
they would
almost
go
at the
to it
top of a
recently. Like,
mountain
they'd go to it.
Got to it a couple of times.
Yeah. It was like their spot, their like secret spot.
But they brought up this a couple of times. Something weird happened. So when they came back, they brought a tape recorder, and that's when they caught the stuff. And there's also but apparently they were getting like rocks thrown at them, and just rocks thrown at them, sticks thrown at them, and just like the
it's so weird.
Apparently they ended up they made almost like a protective little dome out of like these big branches, didn't they, against a tree? And apparently they just sat inside with their rifles and they were like just terrified until dawn came up. And eventually the things left them alone, whatever it was. But that's, to this day, that's considered one of the most credible Bigfoot things because back in those days you couldn't have been able to forge that sort of, the tape cassettes.
On tape, wasn't it?
Like, just like an analog tape. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can't really forge that. A lot of like voice experts have said that the some of the sounds, like not all of them, but some of the sounds that are made on the tape would be like extremely hard for the human range to make. So that's another thing. Also, the idea that it was like a prank, so it's like it wasn't them that were pranking or making it up, but maybe somebody else was pranking them. The idea that would be like there just wouldn't have been people like up in that part of California. Like there just wouldn't have been. Do you know what I mean? It was like 100 miles away. It was like 100 miles away from civilization or something. Like up in a part of California that would have been like, unless you were like ridiculously fit and like used to hiking and all the rest of it, you wouldn't have even been able to get there. I mean, so the idea that it would have just been like a couple of lads messing around is also like very slim chance. Yeah. So I do love that story. Yeah, again, just like a lot of the stories that we've said today and some of the stories we've said in the past, it's, to me, I just put it in the category of like a fascinating story, which will unfortunately probably never be solved, but that is why these things are just amazing stories to recount,
Absolutely. Do
you want to tell us your story now? Mexican Goblin?
I shall. This is a story that has come from
beyond.
Years above me. And galaxies away.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
I just want to say before we even get into it, I'm really hoping that someone sees me, particularly when I was driving in today. Someone saw my visage and thought I was a little bit weird.
Oh, mate, I hope they did.
I was really hoping that, I was going to pull up to someone at a red light so I could sort of turn my face.
Yeah.
And then run off, I was hoping that would have been the move, just so they could be like, whoa, what
something really weird happened to me once as well, just on being like dressed up completely. There was a Halloween party on a gig, and I remember I was like dressed up as a cat, and like and I had a full onesie on. I had like a onesie on with a hood, a cat hood with cat ears, and like I fully face painted my face orange with like the black like things,
nice.
like
with
a
the
cat.
With the whiskers.
And there was someone hitchhiking on the way into Bridgewater, and
maybe he's got a cryptid story.
I forgot that I was dressed up. I was just on my way into like the gig. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, and I just picked him up, and he just got in the car and just kind of looked at me. and I was just chatting to him and he just chatted to me normal and that, and then I was like, oh yeah, I'm dressed up as a cat. You might think that's a bit, do you know what I mean? But we both didn't actual like, he obviously did, but like was just too embarrassed to say anything. No, but I forgot I was until about the roundabout, and then I was like, oh yeah, I'm dressed up as a cat. Yeah, I'm just on the way to a Halloween thing and that. But it was like the real weird, like, you know.
I bet there was a moment when he had his thumb out and you pulled over and he went, oh god.
Do you know what? Imagine if next Halloween I was looking into like stories to tell, and then there was one, I found one from Somerset, and I was like, oh, well, this is great. This is from like Somerset, and it was a guy who like recounts getting picked up by this like Catman cryptid, this like Catman crossbreed that like picked him up in this vehicle, and maybe like it wasn't actually a car, maybe it was like some otherworldly vehicle disguised as a car, and that he like and he only just about got away with his life because he was like worried he was going to be like taken by the Catman, the Catman of Cannington.
It was a proper embarrassing moment though, because I genuinely forgot that I was dressed up, and I was just like trying to do a good deed, and then it was like, oh my god, I was like, I remember when I realised, I was like, oh yeah, I'm dressed like a cat. Like, oh.
Do you remember? I was trying to find some pictures on Facebook the other day, and I couldn't find them, which I was frustrated about because I know that there definitely used to be pictures of us dressed up like this. So I don't know why Vikings. They're not there anymore. No. It must have been whoever originally put the photo up must have, for some reason, deleted the photo. That's the only thing I can think of, because I was like thorough with my search as well. But do you remember when we went to that party in Durley, and Josh dressed as Freddy Cougar, I dressed as Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you randomly dressed as like a freaking Hawaiian woman, and you had like a little. Mate, it was
all I had.
Mate, you had like a little freaking like bikini top
with a
like,
Mexican hat.
Sombrero, but then like a little hula skirt or whatever, you know, those grass skirts.
Yeah.
And you just, like, for some reason, me and Josh were literally there as frickin' Leatherface and Freddy Cougar, like two iconic horror movie characters. Rachel Payne's and Durley's, yeah. Rachel and Matt Payne, who were the people that we went to school with. But Matt was 2 years older than us, and Rachel was 2 years younger.
I wonder if it was on her Facebook or something. Maybe
that's what I sort of hypothesized, theorized, because I looked all the way through Josh's and everything, and all the way through mine, and I couldn't find it. And I thought that it was either mine or Josh's picture, but then I thought actually it was the picture of all three of us, which would imply that somebody else took it. Do you know what I mean? And in those days, it wasn't really common to be like, oh, can you take a picture of us? And I don't reckon we guys would have done that anyway. We would have just been too like drunk and just being silly.
Oh god, I can remember it in my head now.
That's also the night that I think that Josh forgot his keys,
and had to climb through the top window.
I had to get you on my shoulders.
Yeah,
and then like,
I climbed through the window.
You got, mate, I wouldn't through the window. You were the only one skinny enough. Yeah, Josh was just like randomly just really wasted. Was just like lying in your back garden.
Yeah,
just like giggling. And then I just went full commando mode, and Josh was like, "We're not going to be able to get in." And then when I realised the window was open, I was like, "We are getting in." And then I was like, "Drew, I reckon if I stand on the table up against the wall, and then get you on my shoulders, and then hold your hands
as well,
so you can like step on my shoulders. If I hold you steady, like climb through, and you did, didn't you? You managed to get in, and then I remember you ran down and then opened the back door to the conservatory, and we were like, yes. Yeah, that was one of your most like hilarious Halloween outfits. Just the fact that you randomly went as like a Hawaiian woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's going on there?
Skirt, little bra, and
a sombrero.
And a sombrero, yeah. That's a good one.
That was an interesting look, man. That was an interesting look. And I remember another freaking hilarious outfit of that night. I remember thinking was, do you remember that guy Elliot Brown? He was like really sound. He had like a skinhead, and he always had like a cheeky grin on his face. He had like a smile, a bit like a Cheshire cat.
Sound, yeah.
He's moved up north nowadays. He lives with his missus and his kids up north, but. I remember he just turned up and like as a banana, and he had like a full banana outfit, whereas like his head was just like the only thing visible was like the oval of his actual face, and the whole rest of the thing was just like a massive banana outfit with just like arms that were like, and he just looked well funny as well. Yeah, that was a good night. That was a good party. I can't really remember much other than that it was a good night, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I just know that we all had a lot of fun that night.
Yeah.
But sorry, going back off from Drew's hilarious outfits at Halloween, back to the Mexican goblin, aka supposed aliens.
Yes.
Story of this evening.
Yes.
Let's have it.
This is the Monkey Man.
Oh dear.
Of New Delhi.
Oh dear.
Here we go. 20 years ago, in the dark corners of New Delhi, panic spread like wildfire. It was May, and the city was in the grip of a heat wave.
Oh, mate.
But that wasn't what had the streets on edge. No, my friend. The fear that rippled through the capital came from something far stranger, something far more terrifying. A mysterious creature that would come to be known as the Monkey Man.
It's like really not a very scary it's not a name, is it?
No.
Oh no, the Monkey Man! It's like,
that song I was playing the other day.
Yeah, it doesn't inspire terror. It doesn't inspire terror.
No.
But I'm sure it would be scary in real life. Like a weird human cross. Like, think about how scary it must be for people that, when you hear about like chimps that lose it and they've like ripped that freaking woman's face off, and there's other accounts of chimps like ripping men's testicles off because they're smart enough to know that we're similar enough to them that they know where our parts are.
Yeah,
and
the
they
guy
know
with orange hair that met the orangutans.
And he got raped by an orangutan. Do you remember him?
I remember
He didn't
that
listen
one.
to the warnings
That's
about
one for
covering his
Halloween.
hair, and he literally got pinned down and yeah.
Damn.
An orangutan had its way with him.
Orangutan.
That's a Halloween tale in itself. Imagine the terror and the hopelessness, because apparently he was like a real big man as well. When he wasn't like 6'4" or something, and he was like this like really like big long, like bushy like red hair, almost like a bit like yours, Drew, but like a bit like blonde, a bit more like bright, red, a bit more bright ginger, and yeah, just got fully pinned down and just. That would be terrifying. If you actually, the more you think about it in depth, like imagine the feeling of helplessness. Well, there's this like hominid which is like so much stronger than you. You just can't really do anything.
Primal.
And it's just and it's just pinned you down like those horrible jail stories you hear about. But you're just in the jungle and it's an orangutan.
Damn.
And it's just like you can just hear it breathing down your neck, like, and you're just fully like that's dark. That's dark.
That is dark. Yeah,
That's horrible.
That's like a cross between like the movie Planet of the Apes and the movie like I Spit on Your Grave. Do you remember that? Like that was like quite a famous movie back in the day. Without getting in any spoilers, the movie was about really dark story. Really, it was about like a woman who gets assaulted in the woods. Fill in the blanks. By a group of men.
Not buying an orangutan.
But then the story that the movie, no, not by an orangutan, but the movie then takes a twist where she just basically goes on this like vengeful rampage and she like savagely kills each one of the men in turn. So it's sort of like it's like a really dark psychological thriller, like violent thriller. I guess it's a bit of a horror movie, but it's almost like, that story is like a cross between I Spit on Your Grave and like Planet of the Apes.
Horrible.
The apes are dominating you, but you're also getting assaulted.
I imagine almost like the original Planet of the Apes, where they look really creepy as well.
Oh, they do look quite creepy in the
They
original.
look horrible. They're very like Uncanny Valley.
Yes, I was. That's what I was going to ask you. I was like, what's that called? The Uncanny
On a
Valley.
wavelength.
Before we just go onto your story, I've heard an interesting theory actually about why the Uncanny Valley exists, and funnily enough, it might literally be pretty much for the Planet of the Apes movie. And I'm not talking about the exact Planet of the Apes movie, but do you remember what the Uncanny Valley is, Drew?
No.
Uncanny Valley is basically, it's like the things that we find most terrifying as humans aren't things that look ridiculously inhuman.
Yeah.
They are things that almost look human, but a little bit
like
off.
a weird
It's like
like
there's
white mask or something like.
Yes.
If you think
Like-
there's like a sort of line, and here you have like outrageously not human,
Like
and
a
here you
slug.
have like an actual human.
Yeah.
It's that weird part in the middle that's the most terrifying.
Or I would
yeah.
argue that like almost like closer to the human.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
almost human, but so that's why I think people find masks terrifying because it's
Yeah.
a human wearing a mask. So it's like you can tell it's humanoid, but their face doesn't look right.
Yeah.
And there's lots of instances, especially with like children, men or women wearing masks terrify them. It could be the Phantom of the Opera. It could be Michael Myers from the Halloween series. It could be Jason Voorhees. It could be any. Do you know what I mean? Lots of things, or like things like Slender Man. Slender Man, the tale of Slender Man. It's like this tall, gaunt, like man-like creature, but he has no facial features. Like it just freaks people out.
It erases emotion, doesn't it? It's quite cold.
Yes.
It's quite like you've got nothing to base it off what their intentions are.
Or like
the
demons.
grey alien, and
Yep,
the grey aliens,
aliens.
where it's all these weird thin little arms, massive
Yes.
heads, massive eyes.
But at the same time, still sort of humanoid.
Yeah, exactly.
But just like, yeah.
Yeah.
And the same with like demons. Oftentimes demons, not always, but oftentimes demons are depicted as like, still sort of humanoid, but maybe just a bit like freaking reptilian looking with like little horns or something and like creepy looking eyes and that, and like maybe like real sharp fingernails, but like still almost like there's something a bit human about them. Like almost at a glance, you'd be like, that's a human, but then it's not. Anyway, I've heard a theory amongst anthropologists that the reason that the Uncanny Valley exists in our mind, and this to be honest, that this really intrigued me, and I thought that I can imagine that there's some truth to this. Is you've got to bear in mind we're the only human species left alone on the planet now, but a long time ago, between sort of 200,000 years ago and whenever it was that the last other human species, hominid species, died out, there would have been several different hominid species alive at the same time. Obviously, notably, the most famous other hominid species, obviously, is Neanderthals. You also had the Denisovans, but there was also Homo habilis, the little hobbit, also known as the hobbits, the hobbit humans. There were different types of human creatures alive at the same time, different types of hominid species, and that's crazy, isn't it? Neanderthals obviously were like known to be like a little bit shorter but really stocky. Their bones 4 times denser, more muscular, big craniums with big bones where their eyebrows were, so they would have looked like quite crazy. The Homo habilis would have looked like these weird little tiny people that almost like their faces would have looked a bit more like a monkey than ours, but they still would have looked superhuman. So it would have looked like this weird little creepy little thing. And I can't remember really what the Denisovans looked like. I think from my memory that they might have had characteristics that made them look more like what we see of like Asian people today. Right. Because I think that the same way that Europeans have like up to 4% Neanderthal DNA, I think that in the Asian population, they don't have Neanderthal DNA, but they have a bit of the Denisovan.
Right. Interesting.
But yeah, what I'm getting at is apparently the uncanny valley might have been a thing that was put in, sort of evolved into our Homo sapien mind, because the other hominid species could have been a threat to us. So if you saw something that looked almost like you but not quite like you, that would have been like a danger sign.
And it's like an intelligent threat as well, because you think of humans, like we know we're intelligent and we can be sneaky, we can hide, and we can like plot. Like you don't really like with animals. I know like animals can stalk their prey and stuff like that, but like it seems quite natural and quite like primal, quite raw, quite natural.
100%. It's more like going off their instincts.
There's not like this malevolence attached to it, or not
when you hear like a serial killer that's like going out to like stalk someone and kill them like methodically.
And like play with their bones and play with the way that they cut them up and all that crap.
It's more like a lion's hungry. It sees something it can eat. It kills it. It eats it. It's like it's not. There's no like weird.
There's this weird intelligence where you think that could not have my best interests at heart, and it could want to play with me in a real way.
And that's the thing. The other hominids would have had that as well.
Yes,
exactly. They were really intelligent.
There was a guy who went really viral, like talking about this same subject a couple of weeks back, I believe.
Really?
Where he was talking about how, like, imagine being one of those other species, right? And you were just sort of like, with your family in the cave, and you wake up to just hear a couple branches crunching in the woods. So you go, right, I better go see what that is, thinking it could be like an animal or some sort. And you go out there and all you see is this tall, weird, slim, humanoid figure. You don't know what it is.
Not as hairy and stuff.
Yeah, and the creepy bit was that thing would have been there to fully like kill you and hunt you, and that would have been what we are now.
Yeah,
Homo sapiens.
Yeah, because there are some accounts of like it, breeding between like Neanderthals and humans and stuff. But yeah, it's almost like a fact as well that the same way that humans obviously fight and kill each other, they would have also fought and killed these other human, hominid species. So yeah, there definitely would have been like battles between them and stuff. And obviously at the end of the day, we don't know exactly what happened, but what we do know is that we are the only ones left.
There was a really cool fictional story I read by Graham Hancock called Entangled, and it's so cool. It's like it's real gruesome and it's real grotesque, but it's like about like the kind of one of the last Neanderthal tribes, and they were being hunted by like the Homo sapiens and stuff.
Wow.
And it's a really cool book.
That sounds amazing.
And like it's quite brutal and quite gory in that, but then it's also mixed in with psychedelic and stuff, because there's this girl that's like having like hospital treatment and like having out of body experiences of that, but almost like tracking like when she's on that other side, she's having this communication as one of these Homo sapien girls that actually befriends the Neanderthals while her tribe is trying to kill the Neanderthals, and that it's like it's really cool. But I could just imagine it. And apparently Graham Hancock got this whole story in an ayahuasca vision of like almost like something that happened like in our prehistory, and that's what inspired him to write the book about it and stuff. But like it's like really cool, like as a story,
Yeah, that sounds really cool, man. I know that there's another book that's been written, and it's almost like a hypothesis by an anthropologist. It is widely debunked. Like most other anthropologists don't agree with this man. I can't remember what he's called, but he wrote a whole book about how, in his opinion, Neanderthals weren't like these other hominid species that were like quite similar to us, and we sort of like sometimes lived in harmony, you know, and sometimes just like chose actually to to breed between species and stuff. He hypothesizes that these were almost like these terrifying like hominid creatures that would have actively like hunted and preyed upon Homo sapiens and even like tried to like eat us and stuff, and that they knew that we were like competition, and that they would have like been like effing us up, and that maybe the reason that the Homo sapiens were almost like forced to battle them to extinction, because otherwise like they would have just killed us, and the only thing that saved Homo sapiens was a bit like, say, like ants attacking a praying mantis, was that there was like 10 humans to every one Neanderthal, because a Neanderthal one-on-one would have just destroyed a Homo sapien. They were like 4 times stronger, just way stronger, and their brains were just as big. If anything, I think their craniums were actually ever so slightly larger. So they could have maybe even potentially been slightly even more intelligent, but we just had the numbers game. And we can tell from archaeology remains that they only lived in little tribes of up to like 10 people, whereas even back in those days, there were tribes of like 30 to 40 humans. So, if there was like a battle, say, between 30 or 40, do you know what I mean? We would have the numbers chucking all the spears at the same time, and...
Did you... I
watched to think, like... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, just real quickly on this. Watched Graham Hancock with Ben Shapiro. Not Ben Shapiro.
Right.
Sorry. Not Ben Shapiro. Who's
Joe Rogan?
No. Lex Friedman.
Lex Friedman. Yeah.
And recently, I think it was like a week ago or something, he was talking about the Neanderthals and stuff, and he was saying, have you heard of that theory that like the Neanderthals would try and eat humans, and they like would eat their brains, like real delicacy of human brains, and that it gave them this weird disease.
Oh, he's getting too close to the truth yet again. The government.
I thought that was a pretty
like, foil.
Yeah.
Oh, Drew.
Did I go for a sec?
Man, you just froze a minute.
Oh.
So you I think where you froze was you were saying that Graham Hancock was talking to Lex Friedman about how Neanderthals could have eaten humans or something.
Yeah, eating humans' brains.
Right.
So like
really,
we're really obsessed with eating humans' brains, and they got this weird disease that you can get from doing that, which might have killed them off. Because I think the reason why this guy as well, that his name escapes me, wrote his hypothesis, his book about how he reckons that Neanderthals were almost like these like demon apes that just freaking killed us, and would have looked in his book as well. It's almost like a horror novel. Like even though it's not fiction, he's writing it as like a hypothesis, like an actual like historical account in his opinion. The way he describes them in it, like, is like they would have looked terrifying and like almost like these like demon monkeys, like demon apes. But I think that one of the reasons he had these hypotheses was because some human skulls have been found with remains of Neanderthals where it looks like the human skulls were like caved out. But obviously we don't know the context. Do you know what I mean? So we don't know the context of whether, okay, is this proof that Neanderthals hunted and killed Homo sapiens and ate their brains? Or did they... after they had died, or did they come across some Homo sapiens remains and like use just their skull as a bowl or something? Do you know what I mean? So we don't know the context, so it's up for interpretation. Now, some people would obviously go on the side of probably wasn't actually like killing and eating brains. Other people are like, nah, this was killing and eating brains. Do you know what I mean? And everything in between. But we'll never, we might know one day. But it's interesting to.
I like to imagine that we might have been the dark ones, and that's why we're the ones that are still standing today.
We did Order 66 on the other.
Yeah, exactly.
On the other apes.
Like we were saying, we're the weird hominid figures that were like almost stalking out their caves. And
I imagine to the other ones, we might have almost like came across as like the Greys do to us. Do you know what I mean? Like not as physically strong, but just maybe like a bit more technology, and there's just more of them and stuff. That's almost like more creepy in a way.
Yeah.
So as I said, there's almost like that creepy thing about ants, isn't it? It's like there are loads of like insects that are way stronger than ants, but when you see just all of them like just climbing up this big one and just like almost like eating them and picking them apart, it's quite menacing, isn't it?
Don't they say there's so many ants in the world that if they all teamed up, they could just kill every human?
I don't know, but I mean that's pretty cool. That's pretty mental if that was the case.
Yeah.
I think there's something like. there's more ants in the Amazon jungle than there are humans on the planet, or something like that. Yeah, well, I'm not surprised at that, to be honest with you. But anyway, let's get back all the way back to the Monkey Man of New Delhi.
Yes, the Monkey Man of New Delhi.
Maybe this is an old.
Yes,
that's just clawing
like a
on.
ripple in time.
Keeping on. Yeah, or maybe a time traveling one.
So, I feel like I'm melting here. By the way, I've got like paint all over my head. I'm like itchy and melting. Anyway,
the Mexican goblin is melting.
Yes. The first reports were enough to send chills down anyone's spine. A shadowy figure, part man, part monkey, was said to be stalking the streets at night, attacking unsuspecting residents. Some claimed this beast had a hairy ape-like body with glowing red eyes that burned through the darkness. Others spoke of a more menacing figure, 3 to 6 feet tall, arms tipped with razor-sharp claws, or even metallic gloves, like something out of a nightmare. They're almost painting like a Freddy Krueger image.
Metallic gloves?
Yeah.
That's mental.
Pretty creepy.
That's real weird, isn't it? Freddy Krueger gloves, yeah.
So, there were even whispers of the creature wearing a motorcycle helmet and dark glasses.
That doesn't sound scary. Yeah. That doesn't sound scary. That sounds like something on like a birthday card.
Yeah. The Monkey Man moved fast, leaping into the darkness before anyone could ever snap a photo or catch more than a glimpse. Interesting. It also says it was some sort of hybrid, unholy hybrid of man and machine. Interesting.
Like the Terminator, but more monkey-like.
Yeah, exactly. The news spread like a virus, carried on the wings of fear. Media outlets scrambled to report every strange sighting, every attack, every rumour. And the stories only grew more fantastic with each retelling. Fear rippled through New Delhi, amplified by the constant power outages that left the whole neighbourhoods swamped in darkness. People demanded protection from this shadowy predator, but the police were powerless. They were trained to handle thieves and murderers, not nightmarish half-monkeys with steel claws.
That's so good.
As the days passed, fear turned to frenzy. The police set up hotlines, offered a 50,000 rupee reward, roughly $1,000, for any information that would lead to the creature's capture. But instead of answers, all they got were crank calls and false alarms. The more the media reported on the Monkey Man, the more the people claimed to have seen it, turning fear into mass hysteria. Soon, the city's citizens took matters into their own hands. Vigilante mobs armed with clubs, poles and machetes patrolled the streets at night, searching for this elusive creature. Some believed the Monkey Man was more than just a beast. It was an evil spirit or a robot. A creation of dark forces sent to terrorize the city. There were even rumors of a Pakistani conspiracy, with some claiming the monster was a tool of the country's intelligence services. How creepy is that?
Whoa.
Pretty weird.
That's pretty crazy.
Pretty weird.
Well, like a Pakistani that's infiltrated India and is like
Yeah,
terrorizing.
or like some like device they'd set up. Some like animal, maybe they'd like recruited him like a half man, half monkey, or just a monkey.
I like that they'd recruited him. Like they were like, right, what we need is to have I know where to go.
I know the man for the
I
job.
know where to go to get one of these. Yeah.
The chaos only deepened. The rolling blackouts that plagued the city cast neighbourhoods into pitch black shadows, where every sound, every whisper of wind could be mistaken for the Monkey Man's approach. In this atmosphere of terror, accidents could be fatal. One man, fleeing what he believed to be the Monkey Man, fell from a rooftop to his death. A pregnant woman, gripped by panic, tumbled down a flight of stairs, and another man died in similar fashion, falling off a roof after hearing his neighbour shriek in fear, claiming something had tugged at his sheets whilst he tried to sleep.
Oh God, that's probably just sleep paralysis or a bad nightmare.
Not the
Pretty
Monkey
creepy.
Man.
Can you imagine being in the city when there's like constant blackouts going on and the lights
That
dim
sounds
and you just
pretty
hear some like
hysterical.
weird monkey noises?
Yeah, like mass hysteria about
Yeah.
this like crazy monkey man that's just terrorising the city and like going to attack everyone.
Yeah.
Man, I would love to, in a situation like that, if I was there.
Dress
and
up as the monkey man.
Yeah, and just go actually around just pranking people at night. Do you know what I mean? Probably end up getting shot or something. It would almost be worth it, man.
Yeah.
It would almost be worth it just for the lols.
Or even just like making monkey noises from like your home.
Yeah.
And the people are like, oh my God, it's here.
Oh yeah, it's like sometimes like I'll probably do it. Yeah, on Halloween night, I just I just do a wolf howl out the window really loud.
Yeah,
but I do sometimes just do it randomly anyway, just because I like the idea that there might just be like the odd person that'd be like, "What was that?"
Yeah,
that is really freaking weird. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
The hysteria even led to tragic violence. Mobs, blinded by fear, attacked innocent people in the streets, mistaking them for the creature. One van driver was dragged from his vehicle and beaten within an inch of his life by a mob, convinced he was the monkey man.
Imagine just like being imagine just being like a bit unfortunate looking, and like to be honest, you're just like not a particularly good looking fella, and
you're like riding your bike, your motorcycle helmet.
You just look a bit like a monkey for some reason, and then you just get beaten the crap out of by a bunch of hysterical nut jobs. Because they think that you're this freaking mental monkey man.
How crazy is it that this was in 2001? This wasn't even that long ago.
No.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And still, the most puzzling aspect of this entire saga remained. There was no real evidence. No photographs, no clear footprints, just ambiguous injuries. Victims displayed scratches and abrasions.
Oh, so the people actually did have real injuries
died
from the attacks of the monkey man.
Yeah, people died. Those people I was on about earlier are actual people that have died because of this thing.
This monkey man.
Pretty crazy.
That is nuts.
Yeah. These were wounds that could just as easily have come from rats or stray dogs, some of them, though, the ones that were like churn abrasions and stuff like that. And yet, for many, these injuries were proof enough. In their minds, the dozens of people reporting similar attacks couldn't all be lying or mistaken. The monkey man had to be real.
Whoa.
But the reality was far more complex. 2/3 of the victims were men, most of them young and from the poorest parts of the city. These were people who lived in crowded, poorly lit areas, forced to sleep on sweltering rooftops in the oppressive heat. For them, any noise in the night, any flicker of movement could be a threat. In this environment, fear became contagious, spreading like wildfire through New Delhi's poorer neighbourhoods, where the wealthy, safely inside their air-conditioned homes, were untouched by the hysteria. Sociologists and psychologists would later point to this as a classic case of mass hysteria, or more specifically, mass sociogenic illness. It wasn't the first time something like this had happened.
Oh, sorry, man.
No worries, man. I thought it was me for a second.
No, don't worry, it's not you. It's not you.
That's cool.
It's not you.
It wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Similar panics had erupted in other parts of the world, like the Chupacabra panic in Puerto Rico,
of course,
where a blood-sucking creature was said to stalk livestock, or the tales of Spring-Heeled Jack,
in
phantom
London
figure that terrorised London, which of course we spoke about in the past as well.
Yeah.
But in New Delhi, the fear was real. The people lived it night after night. In a city sweltering under 110-degree heat, the fear of the monkey man took on a life of its own, fed by a combination of poverty, superstition, and the unforgiving urban environment. In the end, the monkey man was never caught, because in all likelihood, it never existed. But that didn't matter. The damage was done, and fear had claimed its victims, both in body and in mind. And the legend of the monkey man became another entry in the strange and eerie history of phantom attackers, mysterious figures that haunt the dark corners of our world and prey on our deepest fears.
Whoa, that was a good story, man.
That's it, man. That's the monkey man of New Delhi.
Mate, I don't know what to make of that one, to be honest.
Massive
crazy.
The fact that people were like actually attacked
Yeah.
by something though.
And people died because of the fear of it, jumping off of rooftops and stuff to try and escape it.
I always think there's like a real irony, isn't it? And it's almost like a life lesson that if you don't want something to happen bad enough, then you will almost like bring that upon yourself, which is like a cruel irony, isn't it? So you're scared of getting attacked by something because you're worried that it'll kill you, but your reaction to something isn't even there causes you to die. Do you know what I mean? That's like a cruel irony there, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's like one of like life's weird things. Isn't it,
it's like manifesting it in a way, isn't it?
Yeah. Should we leave it there, guys?
I think that was a good Halloween special.
I think that was a good Halloween special with many a Halloween tale.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on Pandora's Box this week, ladies and gentlemen, for our spooky tales. We hope that you are safe and no creatures of the night visit you this Halloween. We lock your doors, lock your windows, and we shall be with you again next week. But what's that? What's that's trying to get in the door right now?
Oh my.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
What is it? It's the Monkey Man!